Audet, A-U-D-E-T, it's French.
Thank you. You're not Malaysian, right? Or do you speak French?
I do, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, but I'm not from here. I'm from Northern Ontario, so my French might not be the same as everybody else's French down
Oh. It's better than everybody in this room, that's all.
I was gonna say it'll be like Robbins.
Ready to go.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much. So welcome everybody. We're at Committee of the Whole at Town Hall in the Village of Westport. It's Tuesday, January the 7th, 2025, and it's 5 p.m. and we're calling this meeting to order.
We will begin this meeting of the Committee of the Whole by acknowledging that we are a meeting on Aboriginal land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. Long before today, as we gather here, there have been Aboriginal peoples who have been the stewards of this place. In particular, we acknowledge the traditional territory of the Nishnabek, Huron-Wendat, and Haudenosaunee peoples.
Very good, thank you. Any declarations of conflict or pecuniary interest tonight from anybody? So number 4.1 is the agenda. It's moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Crawford, that the agenda for the Committee of the Whole meeting on January the 7th, 2024 be adopted as presented. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
Should be 2025 there. There you go, sorry.
Oh, you're right. And I just worked right over it. Okay, I'm on my toes now. And I called the vote, I think, all in favor? Okay, thank you. All righty, so we've got a couple of delegations tonight. The first delegation is from the OPP, and of course, you need to know that we are huge fans of the Ontario Provincial Police here in the village. Probably one of the very few communities where when your officers drive by, we wave with all our fingers at them because we have so much respect for the work that you do. We've got Detachment Commander Jeremy Doolin here tonight, so that would be Acting Inspector. And we have Acting Staff Sergeant Odette as well. The podium is yours and we are rapt to listen.
Thank you, Worship, members of council. I'm here today as the interim commander for the Leeds Detachment, filling in for Inspector Simon Hardy. Quick 5 seconds of my background here. I've been with the OPP for 24 years, and my regular position is the manager for the Queen West Detachment. But I have worked in, I would say, more than half of the detachments in Eastern Ontario in some capacity or another. So I'm quite happy working in Leeds County, where I haven't been a member previously, but I've certainly spent countless years traveling through pretty much every hamlet and village within the county. So I'm somewhat familiar with Westport, having been one of my primary routes home from Smiths Falls when I worked at our headquarters for years. So I did send, as part of the agenda package, what would normally be included in that report. I didn't have time, unfortunately, to prepare what historically has been the complete package with the cover page and such. But I can provide some verbal updates to enhance the data that was provided with the call for service billing statement for the year 2024 from January to December. It's been my practice in the past not to go over line by line, but certainly subject to any questions that your worship or council may have on any particular item. If I'm not able to answer it today, Staff Sergeant Odette is certainly my tie into anything historical or the local knowledge piece for this detachment. I've been here only from November myself, but if there's something I can't answer, I'll certainly work to get an answer for you. So part of the updates that I typically provide when I'm providing either a quarterly or a year-end report, I try a quick overview of some of the complaints that have been received related to officers, and often through either internal complaints or through the former OIPRD, now the Law Enforcement Complaint Agency venue. So there were a total of 20 allegations related to officers that are members of the Leeds Detachment, but of those files, only 2 are still open as investigation, with the remainder either being screened out, determined to be unsubstantiated, or simply withdrawn. So I highlight that in a positive note, that well, certainly we do follow and cooperate with the complaints process, but a significant number of them are found to be either unsubstantiated or not requiring any action to the point of corrective action and discipline. So I take that as a sign that the officers are in fact doing the work appropriately. So
That's very positive.
I do it in a positive way. From a staffing perspective, just as an update, And again, I'm speaking for the entire detachment, not simply just the Rideau Lakes detachment, but this year we've actually hosted 6 recruits that have arrived over the span of the previous 12 months between the 3 locations. All 6 are progressing quite well through their various probation periods. In fact, I've recommended 2 in recent weeks for their permanent status. So yeah, they've certainly been progressing well. Their coach officers have been doing a great job and getting them out into the community and engaged and conducting proactive activities such as ride checks and foot patrol and such. So it's nice to see the enthusiasm that from my perspective, with almost 30 years of government service, the younger generation is bringing in. And also, we were successful in promoting 2, they're both internal. Thank you. 2 of our constables to the rank of sergeant as platoon leads. It was October.
Yes, yeah, officially October, yes.
Officially October. So a process was run, and the successful candidates were 2 of the constables that work in this community. It's now Sergeant Onstein and Sergeant Zeski. So I've gotten to meet them both in their sergeant roles, but I didn't realize how freshly they were in those roles when I met them in November.
So they were promoted from within and they stayed here? Oh, that's nice. Okay.
And they both have many years of experience beyond what would be the minimum threshold, if you will, to be eligible for promotion. They have a good depth of knowledge. Actually, my impression has been that the sergeant cadre here is a very experienced team of team leads, which is good to see. They bring a lot of experience to their roles here. So it's been quite a pleasure to actually work with them for the brief time that I've been here so far. So going to the actual report itself, the call for service billing statement, and I'm assuming council is familiar with it. I know the reporting structure for the new CSPA detachment board reports is a bit different. And I believe there is going to be a detachment board meeting set up at some point in the new year with the representation from the communities.
Yeah, we're asking Councillor Crapper to take that call for us.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I've been in contact with the chair.
Excellent.
I don't have a date, unfortunately.
I think we do. We're gonna share it with Councillor Crapper tonight.
But there is, it'll be a new reporting structure, and there'll be a few changes to what's actually contained within the reports, and some with a bit more clarification on some youth-related diversions or charges, and a few changes to the data sets that are reported. But for today's purposes, the call service billing kind of outlines based on the uniform crime reporting statistics that are attributed to each call for service, what's happened in the village of Westport over the preceding year of 2024. And in most cases, again, going over the highlights, the total numbers for the various sections, such as violent crime or property crimes, has trended slightly down year over year, also which I view as a positive. There's always going to be a bit of fluctuation within those categories, whether a certain number of theft underoccurrences, there may be a change, whether it's theft over, and that simply relates to the dollar amount. So there's always nuances with fluctuating over year. But the overall trend for most categories is somewhat consistent or slightly less than what we experienced in 2023. Now, I do know that if we're subject to any specific questions anyone may have, one particular topic of interest were the number of motor vehicle collisions. I've spoken with some of the staff on. So I have some information I'll follow up with Peter Evans, who I believe is the manager of public works, who was very specific in type of information that you were looking for. So I was able to actually map the locations against the boundary map that we have. So there'll be some follow-up with Peter to ensure that collisions that are reported are falling actually within and not being misattributed to the municipality. So really, that's all I would have. Subject to any questions any of you may have.
Okay, Councillor Crapper.
Yeah, I, in my work previously, often worked with the mental health team, and I have that for now 5 years in the past. Does it still exist in the same way, and has staffing been consistent on it in our region? Does it exist? I don't know anything about
Well, it does exist. We refer to it as EBSRT, Mobile Crisis Response Team. So it certainly exists here. I can't speak to how long it's existed here in its current format. We do have a dedicated officer that is working with our crisis worker.
Yes, it's been at least 3 years, at least 3 to 4 years.
It was always, as someone involved in primary health, when I look at crime stats, I know that mental health also often underlies a lot of that stuff. So that team
Certainly.
was a huge preventative and early intervention on a lot of issues that could have shown up in lots of these categories. And I think the mental health related stats on this sheet have stayed pretty steady. I don't know how they fare in terms of comparisons to other communities, but it's just really, it's important for the community to know that there is a team that focuses on mental health, because so often a noise complaint or vandalism, any of that stuff is really a mental health issue. And my experience was that the relationships between that team and mental health services were flawless, and very quickly we were able to get people the right service rather than police intervention, which sometimes wasn't really the appropriate thing for them.
Well, we don't want to necessarily criminalize behavior that has an underlying or significant underlying mental health component. We want to get people the right treatment into the right place. So the teams have definitely been very advantageous to have in place to accomplish that. They have good relationships with the Schedule I hospitals, Kingston General, Rockville General, Smith Falls, we're closer to Smith Falls up here. So they have good relationships with all of the staff there and their counterparts in other areas. So when they're able to correspond to live calls for service, there's certainly assistance there, and be able to link somebody into the services right there. And oftentimes it can reduce the number of visits, the number of time that's spent by the officers and the person in crisis in the hospital. So it's
Is
a
it
win-win.
still a pairing of a social worker and a police officer?
Yes. Yeah, and that's been the model I've seen in other detachments as well that I've worked with, is that type of co-response. And there's also a follow-up component that they can do.
Mhm.
They're not employed by the OPP, they are separate, distinct workers, so they have that independence as well, based on the parameters of the agency, AMHS, or
That's great.
who their actual employer is. So
Who's their employer?
the actual,
Where's the money
yeah,
coming
it's
from?
it's sort of Rockville General Hospital.
PG.
So
Oh, is that right?
yeah, so I know next door in Frontenac County, for example, was Addiction Mental Health Services that are the employer.
And it used to be in Brockville too, a number of years ago, so maybe it changed.
Yeah, so the structure can vary a little bit, but the term we're using somewhat consistently is the Mobile Crisis Response
Yeah.
Team. And they just been fantastic. I just can't speak well enough of them.
Great. I would also encourage people that are watching to look at this report, because I guess my takeaway from it is this is a pretty safe community. And again, it's hard to compare apples and apples, but when you look at the number of crimes, although it's pretty expensive to pay for the policing that happens here, but apart from the cost, there isn't a lot of crime. And people talk about safety in communities a lot, and this is the best indicator I think anybody's going to get in terms of how safe is our community. And it's impressive to look at because the numbers are low.
Well, it's nice to see violent crime in the single digit range, certainly. And then, there's every community will have neighbor disputes. If you have neighbors, at some point, there's going to be neighbor disputes and things of that nature that come up everywhere. So, but no, certainly, the numbers weren't jumping off the page at me as something to be concerned with.
Councillor.
Thank you, through you. Just to follow up with Councillor Crapper, is there any way to extract from this data if it was a person within the village limits that, that it was a suspicious person, or if the crimes that were committed were people from within our area or not?
Well, the individual incident would know, assuming we've identified the suspect, would know where they're from.
Okay.
But that would be case by case, incident by incident. There's no way to globally extract that data that I'm aware of. There may be smarter analysts out there than I am, but from my level of the detachment, that would be a line by line type of search. And it's typically not the level of detail we provide in this venue, but.
So the types of complaints that we hear about, depends on the time of year, springtime, it's the loud motors and the pickup trucks, and we get people who sit out front of their house on Concession Street and they can hear coming in 42, they can hear the trucks coming all the way up the hill heading up to Perth. So on point that the Councillor Crapper is saying, we don't have a lot of crime. But we do have those sorts of complaints. We have a village that has many stop signs, as you're probably aware, and, you know, not sure why it is, but it is, and so those are also the complaints that we get. We don't have any traffic lights, but we get lots of complaints about people blowing through stop signs. Sometimes the one we get the most complaint about is the one right outside town hall. Sometimes I think the CAO, when she's on the phone, she can watch car after car. And I'm not making fun of it, but I am talking about, that's not a perception that we like. It's not about trying to, pardon me, hammer the people who are going through the stop sign, but if we don't speak up to you and say something about it, we don't get a cruiser there from time to time, then, you know, it's really the broken window theory, and we're not interested in that. So kind of leave that with you. Anytime that your officers, we've got several of your officers who walk the beat on a regular basis, community loves that. I'm sure that they go home full of cookies and snacks, or run ride program. You know, the community is really in favor of that as well. So having probably worked in many communities where the red carpet doesn't get thrown out like that, we don't have much OPP bashing at all in the village. I meant when I said when I started that you're very well respected and always welcome.
No, I appreciate those kind of words, Your Worship. I did actually to look through the occurrences just over the last 30 days, just as an awareness piece, what's happened here for the last 30 days. And I did remark that there were certainly several ride checks that were done, and some traffic enforcement activities. There were the odd collisions as well, and predictable calls for service this time of year, you know, disputes of that nature. But it was nice to see some of the proactive work as well being documented.
Yeah, we like it. Councillor Hirgona, I didn't mean to jump ahead of you, sorry.
Your worship, you had mentioned in your report there that there was a downward trend. Just wondering if you could relate that downward trend. Is it enough of a downward trend to affect the billing for calls for service estimates that we've received at this point?
Well, it's a very complicated billing model. And we understand they're based on multi-year averages as well for the portion directly attributed to calls for service. So I was thinking a very long term that there would be some impact on that, but some of the changes over from 10 in 2023 to 9, though they're subtle changes, they're not. I think perhaps there's one exception. Yes, there's one exception on page 6 of your agenda package where operational costs went down from 67 to 35. Barring that particular category, it's a very subtle change. So I don't think it's going to be the primary source of any substantial change to your billing. But the billing model is a very complex item, and there's an entire section of the OPP that deals specifically with municipal billing. So, and I imagine your worship municipality has the contact for municipal billing bureau, municipal policing bureau, that is. And I know that is a hot topic on many of the minds of municipalities in recent months, and with the recent announcement that the province gave. So they would be the ones I would reach out to for guidance on any of those specific questions. But you need not go through me specifically to get that answer. You're more than welcome to include me or put them through me. But I'm probably going to the same source for some of those answers.
So you're gonna stay until Simon comes back? That's the tentative plan at this point in time, maybe?
It's up in the air. So, so I understand Acting Inspector Jones was filling in, who is the regular manager here. And I've known Brian for many years. Typically when we're put into interim or acting assignments, there's some default timing. So I was put here for 3 months,
Okay.
which would bring me up until February. What happens after that?
Fair enough. And where was home again?
Trenton, Queen West.
Gotcha. Yeah, Queen West.
And I spent 13 years as a constable in Lennox and Addington. I've also worked in the Frontenac detachment next door as commander as well. And so I have a lot of knowledge along this section of the Seaway, if you will, and of the central part of our region. So
we don't doubt that at all. So tell us candidly, like, what do you think of the police services board and some of the representatives who are on it?
Well, I haven't gotten to meet the new detachment board as an entity.
Oh,
So
okay.
I've had conversations with some of the other mayors and the chair as well. And as my typical outreach when I arrive in a new spot is to connect with the mayor and council as well as the CAOs. But I'm looking forward to the meeting when it comes. and preparing.
Well, you know, Councillor Card is our representative and years of service in fire. Dabbled a little bit with policing years ago, but 45 or 50 years in fire.
Yes.
The chief here for a while. Maybe not 45 or 50, but a good 35 years.
I will admit, I look forward to seeing exactly how the data will be teased out, and if it is broken down by municipality.
Yeah.
I haven't run the report yet myself. But there is a new tool that's available to commanders to prepare the reports to present to council and present to the board. And certainly if there's anything specific that's unique to an individual municipality such as Westport too, we'll see the data that we can get for you if the request comes in.
Anybody, anything else? No, good. Do you want to weigh in?
The more I participate, the more I realize there's a lot to learn, so I wouldn't put Jeremy on the spot tonight for any of those questions.
No, that's fine. I'm sure it'll be great. Anything you have, Seth?
Good, thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you for coming and best of luck. We hope to see you back again, or if Simon comes back or Inspector Jones comes back, wherever you go next, best of luck. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Okay, be safe, watch the deer when you leave.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting everybody.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
nice to meet you. They never put you on the spot. That was pretty cool. Okay, do we have motions to accept the delegations or no? No, okay, great. Then, since we're accepted that one, we have Simon and Scott from Rita St. Lawrence. Not sure how you're, Simon's heading up to the podium. Welcome, Simon. We're so glad that you're here.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Mayor Jones, and nice to see everybody. I think the last time I was here was a couple of years ago when you guys first came to term, so I'm glad to be here. So about a year ago, RSL began embarking on a review of the unanimous shareholder agreement. The impetus to start this is just regular governance review after 25 years of formation, as well as throughout the numerous AGMs that I've participated in the last 3 years since I've started at RSL. Many shareholders have requested for more affiliated businesses. So these affiliated businesses are essentially non-hydro related, so non-OAB regulated businesses, which we've done, such as water, wastewater services, hot water tanks, and streetlights we've gotten into. And in the last few AGMs, additional ones that shareholders have requested have been, for example, EV chargers and other such, because they do generate revenue and earnings to help fund the dividends that we provide to the shareholders over time. And so as we started reviewing that, what we realized was that our original unanimous shareholder agreement did not allow us, was not within the scope to perform some of these new activities, such as electric vehicles, nor would it include some of the existing activities, such as street lighting, which we've done for many years in the past. And so that triggered an overall review. And upon the review, there's essentially two major elements that were updated and then a few minor ones. So I'll start with the major elements. So the two major elements are one, regarding the scope of the businesses, which you've seen in there, and I'll elaborate into that a little bit more in detail after. But the second one was related to governance. So the OEB, since the inception of RSL, has made it a requirement under our electrical hydro distribution company to have a 1/3 director represented by independent director. And so that's been updated to our unanimous shareholder agreement so that it matches our regulatory requirements. And so those are the two major ones. And then before I get into the details of the affiliate business scope, I'll highlight some of the minor updates. So some of the minor updates include languages. So when this USA was formed, many of the provisions were related to the initiation of a corporation. And so some of those were no longer relevant, so they're updated. Many of the shareholders' names have changed over time. And so those were also have been updated. And then just overall language cleanup, such as wording, grammar over time has changed, and that's also been updated. Okay, so now I'll get into the main substantive change regarding to affiliated businesses. And so what we found after being requested from the shareholders as we looked into business opportunities, that if we were to acquire or bootstrap businesses, some of that requires quick decisions for opportunities. So over the past year, there have been 4 or 5 companies within scope and some out of scope that have requested us to review for acquisitions and purchases. And they require a quicker timeline, which we have, although they haven't fit into our scope of what we would have embarked on, we wouldn't have been able to execute it in the timeline. And so one of the provisions that was updated in the draft that was sent out is to allow the board of directors the leeway to make those acquisitions at 15% of the shareholder equity. Right now, as of last year, 2024's audited statements, the shareholder equity is around just under $6 million. And so the capacity at which the board of directors would be able to take on and make decisions on would be at 15%, would be just under $900,000 for business opportunities that would fit into our mandate. And so that's the substantive changes that are essentially integrated into the draft. And how we executed this was because there are 5 total shareholders, if you recall. In addition to Westport, there's 3 other municipalities, including Prescott, Edwardsburg Cardinal, and South Dundas. And then there's a publicly traded company, Fortis Ontario, which is under Fortis, that is part of this. So how we executed this approach was after we read through and made some proposals, we sent it out to representatives from each shareholder. And so for the municipal shareholders, it was the CAOs, and they utilize a lawyer to review the draft changes. And then for Fortis Ontario, they had their senior legal counsel review it. And so we had a meeting, I think in December, to just congregate and kind of discuss how we'd approach it. And as part of the approach and the updates that we updated was to come to all the council meetings, just to at least preview and have a discussion on what's being presented. There was also a proposal from the municipal shareholder representatives, the CAOs, to have a change in how decisions are made. That's not included in here. And so it was asked at that meeting to present it to all the shareholders, all 5 of them, as I go there. And that is to, in our USA that's presented in the past, which hasn't changed, is the decision are made by 80% of the shares by a vote, when there is a vote. And the proposal to change to be 80% of the shareholders. And so that was an idea that was requested on me to bounce it off to all of the shareholders in these meetings. And so all the representatives have been aligned. So if you think about this, as we've talked through, there's pros and cons in both of them. So for Westport, the shares that you have are just under 10%. And so requiring 80% of the shares would essentially have more of a influence, I would say, net overall. Okay. Now, on the larger shareholders that were there, they were also interested in pursuing and discussing this option, because when they're thinking about it, they're thinking they'll need less. If they wanted to put forward a motion, they need less people, less other shareholders to align with to move forward with the change. So I'd say there's pros and cons. So that was just going to be thrown out and discussed so that we can get some sense as to how the councils felt about it. But that wasn't included in the package, as it wasn't within the original intent of why we went to update the USA. And so so in this meeting, what I'm hoping to do is to share with you this USA, the draft USA that we presented, and through all the shareholder representatives agreed to present to council, and then hopefully get some feedback regarding the change that wasn't presented and just discussed verbally, and allow for questions for discussion. I know separate to this, I was watching some of the discussions in the December council meeting, and there were some discussions regarding RSL and maybe some history. And so I know perhaps we can come back outside of this, it's not an agenda topic, to we can update the council as to some of the history of RSL, and we're happy to come back separately do that as well. So those are what I had to present, and happy to take questions and comments and discussions. Yeah.
So thank you, Simon. So just to the CAO, Scott and Simon mentioned that to me before the meeting started. And I said, you know, to work with you, but maybe the March committee of the whole or April, and come back and give, I think Scott called it a midterm check-in. And that'd be great. It's not on the agenda tonight. We've got some other 200 and some odd pages of something else to go through, page by page. You'll need a chair. So let's break it down, because I want to get to the discussion piece as well.
Sure.
I want to make sure I understand that. But I know Councillor Cardy read every page. She still has her reading glasses on.
Okay.
Any questions on the proposal? So you understand that it's been brought forward by the management of RSL, the CAOs work together. Did you want to sort of talk about that at all, Kim, that you met, you had a lawyer that you collectively worked with from the municipalities, and the 4 municipalities are aligned with what's in front of us today?
Yep, you just summed it up.
Okay.
It was a quick process, yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't, I think it took a lot of time, but for us tonight, you and your colleagues have vetted it and gone through a lawyer.
Yes.
Okay, and the management of RSL is happy with where this is,
That's right.
so there's no objection going around anywhere. All right, so anything, because then I want to break down this other, Amy, you must have a question. I mean, you read every page.
Well, I guess it's through you, Madam Mayor. It's, my question was this already like discussed with the CAOs, and it was. I guess my big thing is if you can review the change of the 80% again. Can you
Yeah,
review
we're gonna
that
get
for
Oh,
me?
sure, yeah, so that's outside of.
Okay.
Yeah, now let's just
Perfect.
make sure
That's
that
my
we're
big
okay with
question.
this, and then
Sure.
I'm with you at the 80%. I got
Okay.
that back at the start.
Okay.
So, okay with the package?
Mhm.
All right, so that's good. You know, we're in agreement with that. I don't think there's not a motion here. So.
No, yeah.
All right, now can you walk us through, can you go to this 80%? What happens if we're at a meeting? And
Yeah.
it sounds like the way that they're suggesting to go is to the benefit of a smaller municipality with small amount of shares. Yes?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I
I think
thought.
there's many ways to look at this change. So as we went out and discussed the first round of interactions with the municipal representatives, with their lawyers, it came back with a proposal to amend. There's multiple locations in the USA in which refers how decisions are made within the corporation through the directors or through the shareholders. And in those reference points where they do reference it, they discuss whether it's 80% of shareholders have an agreement for certain decisions to be made. And so there's a section, I think in 4.1 that call that out for directors, and then there's a section with shareholders as well. Okay, so there's 2 sections that refer to that. And so with the proposal that came back, and as we looked into it, what that would mean and discussed it with all the shareholders, is that essentially there's 2 ways to look at it: to change something and to veto something. Okay, so if you think about it that way. Okay, so right now there's 2 shareholders with under 10% shares. One's Fortis Ontario, which is exactly 10%, and Westport has under 10%, right? So essentially we have other shareholders which are at more than 20%, and so both of the, there's 2, sorry, let me step back. There's 3 shareholders, Edwards Cardinal, Fortis Ontario, and Westport, that have less than 20%. Okay, and so right now these 3 shareholders do not have any veto power on any changes that would go forward as an individual. They'd have to, as a collective, work to veto some change.
It's based on their percentage of shares.
Based on the percentage of shares.
Okay.
Okay, if it were to change, right, then every shareholder has equal weighting. So
Right.
there's no difference in any shareholder, whether you own 35% to 9% to 10%, it wouldn't matter. Okay, so when we've discussed with CEOs on the larger shareholders, what they would say is, well, for me to move something forward, I don't need exactly the other large shareholder to be in agreement with me because they have veto power. No one shareholder has veto power anymore, right? You
Right.
still need 4 out of the 5 shareholders to agree to move forward. And so it may be a possibility. And so for Westport and then 2 other shareholders that are less than 20%, what it means is that you are at the table with equal weighing, to veto or not to veto. It still requires 4 out of 5 to propose some change, and then to veto, you would need another shareholder, right, to be over 20% to veto. So it just equals the playing field no matter how many shares are owned by the shareholder. Okay, that's the best way to kind of describe it.
But I hadn't thought that there was an advantage to the larger shareholders to have equal representation amongst the 5. I understand when you explained it, but before then I thought they'd never go for it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So I think some of the large shareholder, at least the representation,
Mhm.
are saying, well, it might go through because there are some advantages
Yeah.
too when you look at both sides. So
Interesting.
yeah, so that was discussed, and all the shareholder representatives, so these are the CAOs and the senior legal counsel, saw no issue with that, but obviously those are not the shareholders themselves, so that's why we're going to each shareholder, whether it be council or the executives of Forest Ontario, to review these changes to make sure everybody's on board. As we would need everybody to be aligned before moving that those provision changes forward.
So if I understand it correctly, that there's 5 people, 5 shareholders voting. In the new way of doing it, each person has an equal vote and it takes 4 to win the day,
Takes 4
to win the day.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions, team? Or now that we put it into simple terms, but I needed,
to win.
because you're looking for kind of a thumbs up that, I mean, for us, that's the advantage.
Yeah.
Is to go with the new model.
Yeah, so yeah, if we can get all thumbs ups from all 5 shareholders, then we can either include it directly, or if it needs more time, we can separate it out, which is what we've done so far. And so essentially, we're coming here and gonna go to the rest of them to get an indication. And then once we get positive indications, then we know how to move forward with these provisions. Yeah.
So we'll probably want a motion for this, so let's maybe talk about it tonight and then bring the motion forward at the next committee of the whole meeting. It's just a month away.
Sure.
But I'd like us to have some I'd like to have some documentation
Sure.
on record
Okay.
for you and for us. Go ahead, Councilor.
Through you to Kim. In your discussions and lawyers' feedback, although it seems on the surface that it's positive for the small communities to have this structure, were there risks that were identified or potential drawbacks to this change that should be considered?
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. I don't know that there were identified any potential risks associated with it. As the mayor indicated, it's more in our favor because we're a smaller shareholder. But when we discussed it as a shareholder group, the representative group, I think we were all in favor of this change.
Okay.
Amicably.
Okay.
There was no anything identified, unless maybe Simon, you were made aware of anything
No,
risk associated, but not that.
no, it's just a change. I mean, to RSL and our team, it doesn't change how we operate, right? Obviously, the decision-making changes, but how we operate is the same. And so we're really, not in a position to comment on one way or the other. But yes, I have not heard anything from any shareholders or any representatives that have any issues, and that's why we're moving forward to all the shareholders on this aspect, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm rethinking this. We just bring it forward in council in 2 weeks since we've already discussed it. I mean, the whole, and so if you've got any naysayers between now and council, we can weigh in, but it looks like it's to our advantage.
Yeah.
There are some times when I sit at councils in Rockville that votes are weighted.
Yes.
And, it's based on population. And
Right.
so somebody in the room will have 17 votes and Westport has 1.
Right.
So there's a lot of politicking that goes on before those votes. If it's one of us, there's a couple of my colleagues that also have small number of votes. If it's something that we really want through, it takes a lot of lobbying
Right.
to bring those people on with the larger votes. So anything else for Scott? Scott, anything you wanted to say? You did come so far tonight. I don't have to warn you to watch the deer when you go home.
No, not unless they're running on the sidewalk. I should be all right. I think that one simple way to look at it is the large shareholders are giving up their veto,
Mhm.
but conversely, it's taking the veto of the other large shareholder
That's what
off
I
the table.
heard, yeah,
So you have to have four.
yeah, good point, Scott. All right, well, I think, any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for coming on, that's a long drive. The weather in Brockville was nasty today, but hopefully it's good when you head back that way.
It's always lovely to come here.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Better in the summertime.
Yeah. Well, we
Thank
can
you
have the
very
AGM here again this year then. You can
Yeah,
do
it's
that.
coming around.
Yeah.
I think.
We've got a great boardroom above the fire hall now.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's been made it a year and a half ago, maybe.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of Christmas parties up there, so nice, it's a nice area. It's
Yeah,
not sitting on
yeah.
on the hard concrete floor.
Absolutely.
So just drop that seed.
I
Because,
will.
you know, last time we had other people who came to the AGM and maybe we could have Marty come to this year.
It'd be nice to see you all.
Yeah.
These guys talking up a lot.
All right.
Okay,
you very
thank you,
much.
Simon.
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, go back to my agenda here.
Now you can really get down to work.
It was good. Thanks again, fellas. All right, we'll go to 6.1, which is the administration section, the 2024 CAO's annual report. And we'll make it moved by Councillor Crapper, seconded by Councillor Card. The council received the report entitled Administration CAO's Annual Report 2024 for information purposes. But were there some things that, questions for the CAO or things that you wanted to highlight? It was an extensive report, and Councillor Card always says that, you know, we don't do a very good job of bragging. So it's very good for that. Go ahead, Councillor Card.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just want to say thank you to CAO Kim. It just is in black and white here, right? You can see the numbers, everything we've done, everything that the staff have done. I think it's really important that the donation policy and the fee waivers, you can see the bottom line there. And I think that's really important for people to see how much money is donated back into our local communities and our groups. So I just think if people read something, they should be reading this to see what has been accomplished this year and where everything is. I think it's great. Our communication policy, I think, is working. And I think all of that, just this report highlights that. So I just think it's really important. If people read something tonight, they should definitely have a look at this.
You just twigged me there, probably twigged Councillor Crapper as well. Go ahead then, Councillor Card.
May have. But,
So tell me, why did you think I got twigged?
no, my question was about, just educate me through Kim to Kim. How unusual is it for a municipality to do its budgeting as late as we are going to be doing it this year? I know there are things that got in the way, but I get asked about it all the time. Is it a real anomaly, or does it happen in lots of municipalities that their
We haven't
budgeting-
started the counties yet.
Okay, because people start reading the papers of products, bad man, blah, blah, blah. And I don't have a context for that. I just know that ours is,
It could be earlier for sure, but counties is starting next week.
okay,
Got the 4-inch binder delivered over January
nice.
between the door. I didn't want to open the door because I knew what that meant.
So it's not an undue risk to us to be doing our budgeting that late. I guess the thing that jumps out at me is when we're making decisions about spending in advance of having a budget, it feels risky. That feeling is unsettling, and so I often, and all of us do, question whether we really need to make decisions in advance of having a budget. I have no sense of what it, how worried, except for last meeting where we did talk a little bit about concerns around our constraints when it comes to budgeting this year. So it sounds like it's gonna be a tight budget. Therefore, we need to be cognizant of that. And now we have this, it was first I'd seen that we were not until April, but it would be.
Do you want to comment? I was gonna say that there are some requirements of the government to have it passed, but April is not an issue. We have some HR challenges this year still that, I mean, in my ideal world, we would pass a 2-year budget and it would be passed by December. I mean, that's my perfect world.
Right.
Because of the maturity of our staff, the pre-authorization, pre-budget authorization, really, Councillor Crump, doesn't concern me at all, because they've got a tally. And they know that if they've asked for whatever, then the whatever is gonna show up on the sheet when it comes to us, but, and it won't be forgotten. Yeah, I guess the the pre-budget approval is common
Yeah.
throughout, particularly if you're trying to get a tender.
Yeah, no, it's more just to normalize for me and
Yeah.
for people to ask me, although when are you doing your budgeting? And, you know, this is what we're doing our budgeting, and it's not an anomaly, nor does it pose a particular risk to us as a village to be doing it that way. So
Yeah.
that helps me.
And thirdly, it's explainable.
Yeah.
You know, we're still getting caught up from HR challenges. So it's not a surprise, it's disappointing, but it's explainable.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, good. Councillor.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment through your worship, our staff have taken the village ahead. The village governmental system has matured over the last number of years to the point where we're developing policies and things that indicate that it's a transparent government. Like, if you want to know where this money came from, you can find out. If you want to know what the set fees are for anything in the village, you can look at the list and see. It's not a matter of somebody looking at your face and deciding whether they like it, they don't like it. It's all carved in stone, black and white, and I really like that. It takes a lot of the thinking out of the process. You read the rules and try to apply them fairly, and I see us constantly moving ahead with that, with those procedures and that train of thought to get the job done and do it well, so.
Right, no surprises, written policies, consistent application of the policies, really gets around, concerns of favoritism or whatever, that when we follow the policy, and CEO is nodding her head there, she's spent a lot of time getting the policies in place, you guys have passed them, but when questions or requests come in from the public, there's a policy to fall back on.
Yeah.
So well done, Councillor.
I also want to comment positively on that. When we have passed policies, we embed sometimes in the reporting that we're going to review those policies, because sometimes we're guessing about whether things are going to work. And I appreciate that. So in this report, we're reflecting on some things that we instituted a year or more ago, and gives us a chance to go, okay, yeah, it achieved or didn't achieve what we'd hoped it would. And that's a helpful tool. This is a helpful tool for us to do that.
So where I thought you were gonna get nudged was, I mentioned it in my letter, my New Year's letter. Did you also want to touch on the survey and then the communications plan?
Yeah, sure.
It's not explicit in here.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, as indicated earlier in an email to council, in the strategic plan, when we passed it in 2023, council appendicized the communications plan to the strat plan so that they can both be revisited and then weighted on a survey. So in order to provide that survey, I think I need some direction from council on how we want to move forward with the strategic planning review process, and then I can develop the survey that's going to go out with regards to just the communications plan, or whether council wants some questions with regard to the strategic plan as well.
So we had talked a little bit in regards, and we were just blue sky gazing, no decisions were made, but I'd love to have a public meeting on the strategic plan. And so when I suggested that, I mean, we may only get 3 people, but we didn't have much public input to begin with. We did have the survey, but that was around communications. We're midterm. You as a council have accomplished a lot. There's still some goals that you have. It would be nice to check in with the public to see if your goals for the next 2 years are aligned with them. And so then that comes back to the CAO's question. I think she squared away with the questions to ask for communications, but did you also want some survey questions on accomplishing our goals for the strategic plan, or get that sense at a public meeting? Because I think if you go and ask 10 people on the street, how we know what their strategic plan, you're going to get 0 answers. But if we have a public meeting and really try and, kind of beat the bushes a bit to get people out, I think it would be important.
Yeah, no, and I think that our context was we revised an existing strategic plan because we liked what was in it by and large, and there were some things that were, added but hadn't been completed. And I'm thinking probably that work, in my view, will take us through to the end of this term. There's still a lot of work to do. I think it would get people theoretically to review that plan like I will have to do. Like, honestly, there were so many pages to read for other things this meeting. I didn't read the strategic plan, knowing we were gonna have the discussion at another time. But I think that's a great idea because it will require, I think people will come to a meeting. I think people more so today than in the past get that a strategic plan is what we commit to doing and therefore are accountable. Someone could come in and say, hey, what about that? And we'll go, yeah, well, here's a reason we, oh yeah, maybe, or here's a reason we can't. But yes, I think it's a great idea. I think it'll engage those who will be engaged. I think there are more who will be engaged today than there have been in the past, and so therefore I think we should.
Anybody opposed to it? Go ahead, Councillor.
So the question, if I understood correctly, is whether or not to have a public meeting and also whether or not to include questions about the strategic plan in the survey. Is that correct?
First question, yes. And does if we do the first, does that provide the information we need to update the strategic plan or try to add it to the survey for communications?
So I would, I'm in support of Councillor Crapper's note about the strategic plan public meeting. Yes, I think that's a great idea. We would get input that we would not normally get. It would focus people on something that we're focused on, and we'll get that input. I think though, if we're gonna do a survey on communications, I think I would recommend that we keep it just on communications.
Good, okay.
And that if we do one on the strategic plan following the meeting, that might work better. Simply because if you make surveys too long, people are less likely to respond. So if we keep it tight and focused on communications, I think that would work a lot better.
And I think that the CAO wants to do the survey on communications before the strategic planning meeting so that we can take that into effect. So it feels like we've got some consensus here. Survey on communications, which I think you're working on, and she'll circulate it before it goes out. And then plan a day spring when the weather's good for a strategic planning update. I have Councillor Carney and Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I think it would be important also to have that readily available, the strategic plan for the public to see on our website, on our Facebook, and have some hard copies so that people can have it ahead of time, ask questions. Maybe that's where that will, generate some interest and also some questions or concerns. So I think that would be an important piece that we should include as well.
Yeah, that's a really good thought. The hard copies will be helpful. It was funny that on New Year's Day, the number of people who picked up the letter. And somebody said it was, that they asked if it was going to get delivered to the house, and I think CAO said no, and they were grabbing several to pass out to neighbors. Councillor Craig.
I just wanted to say that I think that the public meeting's a great idea. We present the opportunity, it's up to the public to participate, and that gives us a good indication too, even just the numbers that participate, what kind of job we're doing, how interested the people are in what we're doing, and what their thoughts are, and how we're performing the tasks that we said we would do. So, I think it's a good idea, both, and I agree with Councillor Argona, if you're gonna do a survey, stick to one subject.
Okay.
There's opportunities in how we do that meeting that are exciting, actually, because I think the way our current plan is structured, it reflects, some exciting specialty areas that our community happens to have people participating in. I'm guessing what some of those are, but I bet the tourism group that has met has done some work between our last strategic plan and now. Some of the environmental things, people have done work on some of our initiatives, so maybe it's a chance. It's not always us at council or staff here who are doing, we're so blessed to have these community members engaged in some of the important dreams that we have had as a village, and they get done by other people. It would be neat to pull in some of the growth that has happened, that we may not even be as clear on, that our plan had aspired towards.
So when you look at the plan, we've got several months to do the planning, but when you look at it, look at what the categories are. And I think you're right. We don't have to stay with that structure. We've only got 2 years left on our term, so we probably want to reinvent something brand new. But when we look at the categories, is there a chance to broaden them, to bring in additional?
Or even structure the meeting around category, you could have people who decide they want to participate in a chunk of that plan, one of those subcategories within it. There's lots, it's a long way off, but it's neat.
Yeah. Okay, so, direction received?
Perfect.
You're gonna, run the survey by, committee before you send it out?
I will, through you, Madam Mayor, I'll develop a survey and I'll bring it to council.
Oh, good.
For
Yeah,
information, and then if there are any suggested changes or additions, then I can make those. before.
Okay, that's good. Are we good with everybody? Go ahead.
One final thought, if we're gonna do the survey again, it'd be great if we could communicate that it's coming, and then communicate that it's gonna happen on a specific date, and note that we have a lot of uptake on Facebook, and that would be a great way to get that out, and make sure that everybody's aware that it's happening, so that maybe we get a higher return on the responses.
And maybe we could get Dawn to do, instead of saying in text, a survey is coming, please, see if Dawn can do a poster. So in a poster with some fun graphics in it, same message, but people would look at it rather than, yeah, so I think Dawn likes playing with Canva. Yeah, okay, so I'm good all around? Okay, I know that wasn't really an agenda item, but it was something that we wanted to talk about.
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, it is later on the agenda
Oh,
under strat
sorry.
plan public meeting, but
Yeah,
that's.
sorry, okay.
And we'll get
Too
out
many
early.
meetings. Sorry. Well, we're ahead of it now.
Yeah.
How's that? All right, so I'm gonna, the motion, we've already read, it was received for information, so I'll just call the question in relation to the report. All in favor? Carried. All righty, 6.2 is 2025 asset management plan requirements. Moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Crapper, that committee of the whole received the report entitled Administration 2025-2026 Asset Management Plan Requirements, and that the committee of the whole recommends that council approve staff's recommendation to sole source PSD citywide for the review and development of the asset management plan to ensure compliance with Ontario Regulation 588-17 until 2030, to be included in the 2025 budget in the amount of $42,200 plus tax. Councillor Carr?
Yeah, I think that it's a good idea based on their experience with the village, and they have to be the largest company serving performing that task in Ontario. And last but not least, we have no choice, we have to do it, so
It's gotta be done by July.
that's right.
Yeah, Councillor Carney.
So just for clarification, regardless, we have to spend the $32,000 anyway, so it's just the $9,000, yeah. So I'm in total agreement with Councillor Kerr.
Okay, good, Councillor Regona.
I needed a clarification when I looked at the numbers. If it's an update to the plan, so through you, Mayor, to the CAO, if it's an update to the plan, it seems the cost is the same as if they were doing a plan from scratch. So would it not be a different cost to update an existing plan rather than similar cost? I mean, it's only $300 difference between what it originally cost to do the plan.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, as you'll note in the analysis section, the requirements for July 1st, 2025 are quite extensive. So what council needs to do is identify the proposed level of service, life cycle management, and financial strategy to support all of those levels of service. So essentially, we are rebuilding the asset management plan with these requirements in place this time. That's why that cost looks similar to when we developed it in the first place. And the $10,000 additional, thanks to Madam Mayor, she directed me to kind of look into that and see if we have to review it anyway next year. When the file's open, why not add it into this year? And it made a lot of sense, and it was a nominal amount, yeah, cheaper.
Okay. Follow-up question?
Go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship, to Kim again. The last thing on the proposal from PSD was a AODA compliant requirement. Do we have to do that, or is that at our discretion?
Thank you, through the Mayor. If staff receive a request for an accessible document, Currently, we're not to the phase where all of our documents on the website are AODA accessible, but some municipalities are there. And so that's why they're paying this additional fee to have this document posted on their website in that format. Right now, we're working at the level that if we receive the request to make it accessible, then we'll print it, we'll do whatever the request is for that specific individual.
Understood.
Having that said, because we don't do it for all the rest of the documents on the website, we likely wouldn't do it for this one unless council so directs. But we have other ways that we can make this document accessible if their requests come through.
On that point, but it's not required that our website be able to at this point.
At this point in time, it's not required that all documents
Right.
on it have to be in
Yeah.
accessible format, but we do have to make it.
As we aspire
Available.
to, yeah, right.
That's right.
Yeah. And I think therefore spending the money on that when it's not actually gonna happen would be hard, difficult.
Well, the village isn't there yet, that's
Yeah,
all. We're just not
exactly.
there with all of our documents on the website.
I did have one other question, which is, to me, it seems like the choice is either go this route or you hire someone who's your asset management person, right? And are the majority of communities our size outsourcing this work, given the approach that the government is taking?
Complexity.
Yeah, thank you through you, Madam Mayor. They are indeed, and even people with asset management staff in-house are not capable of doing this review. And in
Yeah.
fact, it likely would be saving money in the long run to have PSD
Well, that's
provide
right.
this service,
Yeah.
rather than have their staff have to learn how to do it
Mhm.
and take the time to function in
Yeah.
a manner.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, then I'll call the question. All in favor? So 6.3 is is from administration again, development charges background study. And the motion is for information purposes only, moved by Councillor Crapper, seconded by Councillor Card, that the committee of the whole receive the report entitled Administration Development Charges Background Study for information purposes. Any comments on that? You could bring our speaker back.
It's funny that you say that. My question was, I understand we have a very in-depth study here. It's very detailed. There's a lot of information here. There's a lot of acts that are being highlighted and referenced, and then there's a lot of recommendations. The recommendation is to go to a public meeting. That would be the next step. My question is, at some point, is the author of the study going to be able to meet with us again, and perhaps we can deal with any questions that council may have as it relates to specific sections, so we can get clarity on any of the content that's in here.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. As you'll note in the analysis section as well, it's not just the development charges study that we want to contemplate. I know there's municipal act connection fee charges as well that they're undertaking a review on. So staff plan to bring back what they render from that analysis and then bring back the consultant to present that. And at that point in time, this is being presented to council now for the 60-day requirement for public consumption. So it needs to be posted to our website. So this is just to tell council that we posted it, we're meeting that timeline, but we'll bring the consultant back. The main reason for that is because in the proposal, there were only so many in-person visits that we had included in that proposal. Any additional would cost the village a little bit more. So we coupled those two sessions together. So they'll be back in either February or March to go over the connection fee analysis, the current municipal act charges that we have in place.
Perfect.
And it comes with a report from you.
That's right.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Councillor Carter.
I found the bylaw really helpful, actually. I slogged through the whole thing. When I got the bylaw, I went, oh, okay, I think I understand. And I, told a couple of people what I thought it meant, and they go, wow, that makes sense. So everyone should look at the bylaw and the briefing note as the two. But the question I have, and the question we will be asked, if we went with the development charges approach, given our understanding of phase 3 of watercolors, would they be exempt or would they be paying the development charges?
I don't know if we can stay at this point in time, because we haven't got nothing.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
Given where we are with phase 3, because honestly, if they aren't, by the time they're completed, there won't be much more development happening anyway. So like, there wouldn't be a lot more money to garner through development charges. What I'm hearing then is they aren't necessarily not going to be paying the development charges, given where they're at in the plan of subdivision, et cetera, process.
Well, I don't know if we can categorically answer that, but what we do kind of get from that last meeting is this is for the future as well, for whatever else happens in the village. And if you don't do it at some point in time, then there could easily be, expropriation of land, and that council sitting around saying, gee, we wish we had development charges.
Right, like we probably wish we'd had development.
Exactly right.
Can you do both capital, this is, I should know from the visitor we had that day. Can we both do development charges and capital charges concurrently?
Yes.
Yes.
So that would solve the problem, wouldn't it?
Well, it's a path forward, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a question? Go ahead. Just, again, through you, Madam Mayor, to Kim. So in your report, will those be broken down more clearly for us than, in previous, like just maybe in layperson terms for us to? So, that we can see, and so that the public can see exactly what the options are instead of reading, 85 pages, right?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I'll also get an answer, a more specified answer from the experts on that for the council meeting next week. But yeah, it'll outline the recommendations with respect to the current connection fees, what that analysis renders, and what the recommendation would be going forward, increase or not, and then the development charges as set out, I believe it's Schedule A of this document, more in lay terms.
Yeah, just in some research I've been doing, I know that Kingston somebody contested the fact that they were using both the DCA and the municipal act charges, and Kingston prevailed in court, so, and it's well established. So I think that gives a little flexibility for anybody that's looking at, so you have to look at the whole picture, you can't just make up your mind that, that this is the way to go or this is the way to go. We have to see all the information, see whether there are categories we could use one act in and categories for the other act. And I think just to do a complete analysis and come up with a complete plan, the first kick at the can instead of, just taking little bites out of it. I think that's what we need to do.
Yeah, like almost, like I was describing it, let's whiteboard it so that we really know what's connected and that sort of thing. That's a crapper.
I think the exemptions will jump out at people if you read the bylaw, because that's where people get worried. Well, how will this slow down growth and, my ability to renovate or whatever. It's pretty cool to see that the number of things like low income housing and rental units and, it doesn't apply to the majority of progressive things. It applies to, in a nutshell, to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, to growth that is going to consume village assets, new village assets. So to expand your house and not add people doesn't consume more assets, it just gives you more space. But to build housing that attracts new people who will then use the library, as an example, that's where you want to apply these charges of one type or another so that we recoup the fact that those services cost residents money.
Right. Okay, so it's for information purposes. Let's call the question. All in favor? Carried. 6.4 is the lease agreement with the county. Moved by Councillor Card, seconded by Councillor Cropper, that the Committee of the Whole receives the report entitled Administration Lease Agreement with the County Paramedic Services, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council approve the rental agreement as presented at the January 7th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting. Any comments? Call the question. Oh, sorry, you
Great.
voting? Okay,
Awesome.
Call the question. All in favor? Thank you. And 6.5. Treasury infrastructure loans have matured. So the motion is moved by Councillor Cropper, seconded by Councillor Card, that Committee of the Whole receive the report entitled Treasury Infrastructure Loans Maturity, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council approve the refinancing of all 3 infrastructure loans, including one for the Church Street reconstruction, the loan for the water treatment improvements, and LSSDS construction term loan for a 1-year term. So one is new this year. The LSS was a 5-year. It's come up this year. The other two we renewed this time last year for 1 year, so we are renewing these three for 1 year. Go ahead.
Any reason that the one interest rate through RBC would increase and as if there's something that sets that loan apart, puts it in a different category that, or is it something we can negotiate with the other lender?
Karen?
Yeah, thank you through Madam Mayor. I will look into that and I'll have an answer for you at the council meeting. We won't ratify anything until council. So
Yeah, okay.
I'll get you that information.
Anybody else? All right, then we're gonna get that answer at council, but otherwise, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Good. Oh, there it is. Information item, discussion, strategic plan review, public meeting, done. Okay. Anybody, anything else? No. Any notices of motion? Any announcements? Oh, wow. Councilor Aragona and then Councilor Crapper.
It's a short announcement for anyone who's a trail walker. The Westport Tourism Group, in association with the Lions Club and the Rideau Trail Association, has launched the new Westport Trailhead just above the Lions Club beach, and the sign is up and the trail is open. This was done in mid-December. We had MPP Clark up, in addition to representatives from the Rideau Trail Association, and including the representatives from the A2A Trail. So this is getting a lot of play in newsletters for both associations, and I just wanted to say that anybody that's interested in promoting another aspect of Westport, the Westport Trailhead, is something that we can do.
Nice, well done to the team. Councilor Crapper.
I've been asked to share that at the Cove, the Better Together group are commencing the eco cafes that took place last year. And these were pretty successful at getting people together to just discuss a variety of environmental issues, community building, capacity, resilience, at both local and global environmental levels. So people there'll be speakers and videos on topics this year, and the Cove is the venue and are very generous in allowing people to utilize space. People can have wine and beer too, and the conversation really gets going. And this year, it's gonna start on January 16th, the day after my birthday, and run on Thursday afternoons, each Thursday between 3:30 and 6:30 until March.
Yeah, good. All right, thank you.
Come on out for a beer,
Yeah, day after your birthday.
day after my birthday.
Okay, thank you. Anybody, anything else? Okay. Any questions from the public or the media? All right, so we're going to go into a closed session. It's moved by Councilor Card, seconded by Councilor Crapper, that the committee of the whole proceed into closed session as permitted under the Municipal Act to consider personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees. All in favor? Carried. Are we live?
Yep.
Okay, I'll say it.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. We're back. We finished our in-camera discussion. We're back in open. And the motion is moved by Councillor Aragona, seconded by Councillor Cardy, that committee met in closed session to consider personal matters of an identifiable individual, including municipal employees. And committee took no action beyond receiving information from staff. Any discussion on that motion? I'll call the question then. All in favor? Carried. And it's moved. So we're going to adjourn. Anybody, anything else for the meeting? Okay, moved by Councillor Cardy, seconded by Councillor Aragona, that this meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Village of Westport be adjourned at 6:55 PM. All in favor? Carried.